And welcome back. Today, a topic that's sometimes uncomfortable to talk about. It's estate planning. Nobody wants to think about not being around with family, but it's important to make your intentions clear. Joining us today is Spiegel from McLario, Helm, Bertling, and Spiegel to help jumpstart that conversation. Good morning to you, Al.
Good morning, Molly. How are you?
I'm good. I didn't realize that May is Older Americans Month, and I know that this year's theme is Communities of Strength. What type of legal matters do you see that the community can look at for our aging parents, for example, and older adults?
Well, I think the real thing the community needs to be aware of is how isolating it can be to be an older American. You know, people, even if they're living at home, and especially now, don't have a ton of contact with outside people, and that opens them up to the wrong people kind of surrounding them, or just them getting in a position where they're not making wise decisions or not getting the care they need. So we really got to look out and make sure they're surrounded by people who love them and are going to take care of them.
It's so important, I think. It's such a hard thing to have these conversations, I think, especially with our parents. So what should we be asking them about estate planning?
Well, probably the basics of what we need to ask our parents or grandparents or other older relatives and loved ones are, do you have an estate plan? You know, the stats say about half of Americans don't. If you do, where is it? And what do I need to know about it? You know, maybe someone has an estate plan that another person is handling. That's great. It's good to know that. But maybe you're the executor, which you might be if you're the one who's asking about it. So you need to know where to find it and what you need to know right away. Are there things that need to be dealt with instantly or people that need to be notified? Kind of just give me a bullet point list of what needs to happen from my perspective.
I like the fact that you acknowledge that this is a tough topic, that this is a sensitive subject. So what advice do you have for starting that conversation?
Yeah, well, really the analogy I always make is talking to your parents and grandparents about estate planning is kind of like talking to your teenagers about sex. It's awkward. Both people don't quite know how to broach it, but it's best if we don't make it a one-time conversation. When we talk about it, it should be an ongoing thing that comes up so that we can both be updated and be comfortable as situations change.
People talk about having a family meeting. Are you a fan of that? And what exactly is it?
I am a fan of it. I mean, I'm a fan of any kind of communication. You know, doing what I do for a living, I've seen some family meetings go wrong. So I won't tell you that every family should have a meeting with everybody there. But there should definitely be an understanding. So many people have, you know, kind of the envelope or the assumption about what's going to happen when they're gone. But if you want people to know something, my advice is get them in a room and talk to them. And if there's something that might be a little uncomfortable between two people, let them both hear you say it at the same time, because the most common concern raised by people after a person dies is, well, mom would have wanted this. And we get a lot of different versions of what mom would have wanted. So if mom can say it when both people are in the room, that'll cut off a lot of that problem in the bud.
That is such a great piece of advice. I think that will resonate with a lot of people, because we want to sometimes do what we think someone would want. But if they can actually spell it out for us, it's that much better. Do people tend to talk to you first and then talk to aging parents, or do you have that conversation first before talking to a lawyer?
It goes both ways, but I would say most of the time people kind of work up the nerve and come and talk to me just because they don't even want to address the topic if they're not going to move forward. So they'll come talk to me, and my encouragement to a lot of my clients is bring your kids with you. When I'm explaining it to you, I can explain it to them. So not only do they have a basic understanding of how it works, but they've been introduced to me so that if questions come up in the future, they know who to call and they have some level of comfort with me as the person that can advise them.
I like that idea of having that conversation. One of the things that's a great concern to people about their loved ones is things that might happen in a nursing home. Scams, for example, any type of elder abuse. As we want to protect aging loved ones, do you have any advice on things we should be on the lookout for?
Absolutely. And this kind of goes back to where we started, where we want to make sure that people aren't isolated. I think those of us who are busy and have kids and who are out in the community a lot forget that a lot of these folks are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and aren't having a lot of contact with the outside world. So the first thing you can do is just be in regular contact with them. Part of my estate plan is I have 6 kids so that there'll be someone to visit me almost every day of the week someday when I'm older.
I love that. 6 kids. You're a busy guy. I appreciate your time. Some really good advice today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for talking to me, Molly.
Yeah, thanks, Al. And McLario, Helm, Bertling, and Spiegel has a video series on YouTube that you can subscribe to in their channel there or on Facebook at McLario Law. This month, they dive into each of the areas we discussed today on the show. If you have any questions, you can also feel free to call them for suggestions. It's 262-251-4210, or for more information, visit their website. It's McLario.com.